Okay, so these first two examples we have were crafted by whoever wrote these notes. And then over on the side, I copied an actual problem from the homework because it used three formulas that weren't really in this. Turns out the little glasses gives you an explanation, and the explanation does eventually tell you how to work the problem if you scroll down. Nice to know. Now this one though, suppose the open value of the Microsoft stock is $68.41 per share. If 25 million blah 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 shares were traded today, what is the value of these shares? So I have the price per share and the number of shares. So if I multiply those two numbers, I get some ridiculous answer. So 68.41 times 25529,982. So that is 1.7465 billion. That's what the E9 would be. 9 decimal places, 6 decimal places is millions, so another 3 puts it at billions. So if everybody sold their stock, that would be an influx from whoever is buying the stock. Sometimes it's the company, sometimes it's just other people. But $1.74 billion moving around somehow. All right. Second example is a tiny bit more realistic. Suppose you purchased 100 shares in the Microsoft stock today at a value of $68.41 per share. A month later, the value rises to $72.21. So you decide to sell all your shares. How much money did you make? Ooh. So essentially, what was your profit after you negate the cost you had to spend? All right, so we spent 100 times 68.41. 68.41. We get 68.41. And then we earned 100 times 72.21. And now we're just going to subtract these. $380. Yeah, for having $6,800 to play with, like 380 seems trivial. I mean, it's not, but a little. All right, before we do bonds, here is the way Alex asked the question. So I was looking at this and realized I had no clue what to do. So I clicked the glasses and I scrolled down, and this is the steps I got. And these have the formulas that we would use. So the current yield is the annual dividend per share, that's 78 cents for this problem, divided by the closing price, which was the $38 for this problem. So 0.78 divided by the price of $38. So that is the decimal. We would then want to multiply it by 100%. So I get 2.05%. That's the yield. And the earnings per share, their annual earnings, which is in the sentence above most of it, 7.2 million, divided by the shares, the 8 point blah blah million shares. Literally just gonna put those two numbers but we are then going to use this earnings per share number in the next calculation. So 7200,000 over 8285,100. So there it is, 0.869 or 87. I think it, yeah, round to 2 decimal places. So this one would round to 0.87. And then the price to earnings ratio, we take the closing price, which for this one was 38. We're going to divide that by the earnings per share that we just calculated, and that was the 0.869. And there's our price to earnings ratio, 43.73. And to be perfectly honest, I have no clue what any of these numbers mean. My ex-husband had stock, and he sold it all to pay the lawyer to divorce me. And then he had to take out a loan to pay my lawyer. It's quite funny. Okay, we'll pause and then come back for bonds.